was supposed to be just another stormy night. But the moment billionaire Liam Carter stepped into his private garden, he saw her, a young woman drenched to the bone, cradling a baby wrapped in an old blanket under a broken stone arch. She didn't belong there. Neither did the sadness in her eyes that mirrored his own. For years, Liam's heart had been a locked room, empty, cold, echoing with regrets he never spoke of. But in that garden, as thunder cracked overhead and rain soaked his designer suit, he saw something that tore through the walls he'd spent so long building. The woman whispered just one thing before she collapsed at his feet. "Please don't let him find us." What began as a routine walk through the grounds would become a battle for redemption, a journey of secrets, and a love story Liam never thought he deserved. If you've ever believed that broken hearts can still find new life, stay until the end. This story will break you, then piece you back together. Before we start, tell us in the comments where you're watching from, and get ready to feel every heartbeat, every promise, and every fear that brings these lost souls home again. Liam Carter hadn't set foot in that back garden in over a year. He could still remember the last time he'd stood there under the twisted iron trellis, his wife's laughter echoing in his memory, while the scent of lavender drifted from the flower beds she'd once tended herself. But since her passing, the garden had turned wild, vines coiling over stone benches, rose bushes left to wither under harsh winter winds. Like him, it had become a place frozen in time. Liam's townhouse was one of Manhattan's best-kept secrets, a sprawling brick estate hidden behind high ivy-covered walls, a private oasis in the middle of the city's relentless chaos. To the outside world, Liam Carter was the genius who had turned Carter Holdings into a multi-billion-dollar empire. They said he was ruthless, brilliant, untouchable, but those who knew him knew the truth. He hadn't really been living for years. Inside, every room was a museum of what he'd lost. His staff moved like shadows, polite but distant. They never asked why he kept his late wife's paintings exactly where she'd left them, or why the nursery upstairs remained untouched, a shrine to the baby they'd never brought home. He told himself the garden was just another forgotten corner, like his heart. But tonight, something pulled him there. Maybe it was the storm, rattling the windows like an old ghost begging to be let in. Maybe it was the sound, a soft, broken cry that drifted through the rain, like a whisper meant only for him. When he stepped outside, the wind sliced through his tailored shirt. The rain soaked his hair, his shoes. He didn't care. He saw her immediately. The woman was half hidden beneath the stone archway where the climbing roses used to bloom. She clutched the baby close to her chest, her back pressed against the cold wall, her eyes wide with a terror that made Liam's chest tighten. Her clothes were little more than a thin sweater and a torn dress, already plastered to her skin. The baby, tiny, pale, with only a pink knit hat for warmth, stirred, letting out a soft, hiccuping wail. Liam felt something shift in him, something he'd buried so deep, he'd almost forgotten it was there. He cleared his throat, his voice rough from disuse. "You shouldn't be here," he said, though the words sounded crueler than he meant them to be. The woman flinched. She held the baby tighter, her eyes darting behind him, as if someone might appear at any moment. When she spoke, her voice was hoarse. "I'm sorry. I didn't know where else to go. Please, we'll leave. Just let us stay until the rain stops." Her words struck him like a slap. The desperation, the way she rocked the baby, whispering comfort that sounded more like an apology than a lullaby. He stepped closer, slow enough not to spook her. "Who are you running from?" he asked. She looked up, and he saw it. The bruise hidden beneath her left cheekbone, the split in her bottom lip that she hadn't even bothered to hide. "Someone who doesn't deserve to find her," she said, glancing down at the baby. Her voice broke. Or me. Thunder rolled overhead. Liam looked at the baby. So small, her breath fogging the damp air. He remembered another baby, one he'd never gotten to hold alive. He remembered the stillness in the hospital room, the doctor's gentle lie that sometimes these things just happen. He'd hated that lie ever since. He reached out, but stopped himself. The woman's shoulders trembled under the weight of everything she was trying to carry alone. "My name's Liam," he said, softer now. "You and the baby come inside. Just for tonight. You're both freezing." The woman blinked. Hope flickered behind the fear, like a candle trying to survive the wind. "Emma," she said. "Her name is Luna." "Luna," he repeated. The name tasted like a promise. He held out his hand. She hesitated, then placed her trembling fingers in his. Her grip was fragile, but there was a quiet strength there too, something that made his chest ache in ways he hadn't felt in years. He led them through the garden gate, up the old stone steps, into the warmth of the townhouse. Mrs. Langley, his housekeeper of 2 decades, appeared in the foyer, her eyes widening at the sight of the dripping woman and the tiny bundle in Liam's arms. But she didn't ask questions. She simply nodded once and disappeared to fetch blankets, tea, anything to make them warm again. Emma collapsed onto the couch, Luna sleeping fitfully against her chest. Liam stood nearby, staring at them, at the fragile trust that had just walked straight into his locked-up world. He didn't know why he felt so protective already. He didn't know what he was supposed to do with the way his hand shook when he tucked a fresh blanket around Luna's tiny feet. But he knew one thing as the thunder rumbled outside. He couldn't send them back into the storm. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. Liam didn't sleep that night, even after Mrs. Langley had settled Emma and Luna into the guest room, even after the storm calmed and the thunder faded into a distant grumble. Liam lay awake in his leather armchair by the fireplace, staring at the dying embers like they could tell him what to do. He'd always believed in logic, in numbers that added up. He'd built his empire on deals calculated down to the cent, always knowing the next move before anyone else did. But nothing about the woman upstairs made sense, or maybe it made more sense than anything ever had. He found himself replaying her words. "Please don't let him find us." He'd seen enough bruises hidden by long sleeves at corporate galas. He'd sat in too many boardrooms with men who smiled for the cameras and broke hearts behind closed doors. He knew the signs, and he knew the guilt too, because he'd done nothing for so long. Until now. At sunrise, he made coffee that tasted like ashes and checked his phone for the first time in days. No missed calls, no emails that mattered. He told his executive assistant to handle everything, and she did. The company ran better when he wasn't there. When he heard a soft cry from the hallway, Liam pushed himself up and stepped into the corridor. The guest room door was cracked open. He saw Emma on the edge of the bed, Luna cradled in her arms, rocking back and forth. Emma's eyes were rimmed red, but she smiled when she saw him. "She's hungry," she said. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to wake anyone." "It's your house now, too," Liam said before he could stop himself. The words surprised even him. He'd never offered his home, or his heart, to anyone since the day they'd wheeled his wife's body away. Emma looked down at Luna, tracing her cheek with one trembling finger. "I keep waiting to wake up and realize we never made it here. That you're not real. That the rain washed us away." "You're not going anywhere," Liam said. He heard the steel in his own voice, the same tone he'd once used to close billion-dollar acquisitions. Only now, he used it to promise protection to a woman who barely knew him. Emma exhaled a shaky breath. "You don't even know us." "Then tell me," he said. "Everything." They moved to the sunroom while Luna drifted back to sleep in Emma's arms. Pale morning light slanted through the frosted windows. The garden beyond was soaked and wild, but the storm had given way to fragile sunshine. Emma took a sip of the tea Mrs. Langley brought in, her hand shaking. His name is Victor Reyes. He was Luna's father, at least by blood. But when I told him I was pregnant, he changed. He didn't want her. He didn't want me. But he didn't want to let us go either. Not really. Liam felt the air tighten. He'd met men like Victor at galas and benefit dinners. The charming ones. The ones who looked you dead in the eye while stabbing your trust in the back. He told me I was worthless. That no one would want a broken girl with a baby. Emma continued. She stared into her cup like it held all her old ghosts. He made me feel like maybe he was right. For a while. But then, Luna was born, and I looked at her and realized he could never have her spirit. He could never take away the only good thing I'd ever done in my life. Liam sat forward. Is he looking for you now? She nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. He knows I ran. He'll come eventually. He always does. He'll say I'm unfit. He'll use money and threats to take her. He's done it before, to his own brother's wife. She lost everything. I can't lose her. Liam clenched his fists. In his mind, he saw flashes. Victor with his tailored suits and cold smile, standing at the gates of his sanctuary. He would not allow it. Not this time. You're safe here, Liam said firmly. Both of you. Emma looked at him then, really looked at him, and Liam felt the fragile strands of something stronger than trust pulling between them. She saw something in him he thought he'd buried with his wife, the part of him that knew how to stay. Why are you doing this? She asked, her voice trembling. Liam could have given her 100 reasons, the legal ones, the moral ones, but he told her the truth. Because once, someone I loved asked me to protect our child, and I couldn't. I lost them both. I didn't get another chance until you knocked on my door. Emma blinked back tears. I'm not her, Liam. I know, he said, softer now. But Luna, she deserves a chance. And so do you. A sound broke the moment, a soft giggle from the baby's lips. Luna was awake, her tiny hand reaching for Emma's collar. Emma held her close, pressing a kiss to her forehead, and Liam couldn't stop himself. He reached out and traced the baby's tiny fingers with his thumb. They curled around him with surprising strength, and for the first time in years, Liam Carter felt a pulse of life under his skin, a fragile heartbeat that made him want to fight again. They fell into a rhythm over the next few days. Emma stayed in the guest room. Liam spent hours pacing his study, talking with lawyers he trusted. Mrs. Langley quietly transformed the house, bringing in new linens, stocking the kitchen with baby formula and fresh fruit. It felt like life was creeping back into the walls, covering the cracks where grief had once seeped in. At night, Liam read the financial reports he used to live by, but his eyes drifted to the baby monitor Mrs. Langley had insisted on. The soft hiss of Luna's breathing became his anchor. One night, just after midnight, he heard footsteps. Emma stood in the doorway, her hair messy from sleep, her arms empty. She won't settle, she whispered. Would you mind trying? Liam's heart jumped. He followed her to the room. Luna was fussing, her tiny face scrunched up, fists waving in the air. Emma handed her over, her fingers brushing Liam's. For a moment, they both stilled, the closeness electric, unspoken. Liam held Luna to his chest. He'd never done this before, not with his own daughter, not with anyone's child. But Luna pressed her cheek against his heartbeat, and the fussing stopped. Slowly, her breathing steadied. Emma watched him, her eyes wide with something like wonder. You're a natural, she whispered. He laughed softly, careful not to wake the baby. Hardly. She's doing all the work. But he didn't put Luna down right away. He stood there for a long time, the baby's warmth soaking through his shirt. Emma's eyes locked with his. Something between them shifted, something fragile but real. 2 days later, Liam stepped into his study to find Mrs. Langley waiting, her face grave. "There was a man at the gate," she said. "He left this." She held out an envelope. No return address, just Liam's name in block letters. He opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, printed in sharp black ink. "I know she's with you. She's mine. I'm coming for what's mine." There was no signature. None needed. Liam's pulse thudded in his temples. He looked out the window, past the iron gates, into the shadows gathering at the edges of the garden. Victor was coming. And this time, Liam wouldn't stand by and watch a family be stolen. Not again. Victor didn't knock when he arrived. He never did things the decent way. Instead, he waited just beyond the gates, leaning against a sleek black car like he owned the world. He wore an expensive overcoat and the kind of smug grin that made Liam's fists curl. Mrs. Langley called up to Liam as soon as she saw the car through the camera feeds. "He's here," she said, voice low. Liam felt something in his chest click into place, a calmness he hadn't known in years. He walked to the front door and stepped out into the chill air, closing the door behind him so Victor couldn't even glimpse inside. Emma and Luna were safe upstairs. Mrs. Langley was with them. And Liam. Liam was exactly where he needed to be. "Long time, Carter," Victor called out, his smile slicing across his face like a blade. "Didn't think you'd get yourself involved in things that don't concern you." "Emma and Luna concern me," Liam said evenly. "They always will." Victor tilted his head, mocking. "Cute. You're not their family. You're just a man with too many ghosts and too much money. You think you can hide her here forever? Do you know what the courts will do when they find out you're harboring my daughter?" Liam's eyes narrowed. "You don't get to use that word. You abandoned them both. You hurt her. You threatened to take that baby just to control Emma. Not this time." Victor chuckled. "You think your money means you can buy a conscience now. You're pathetic, Carter. You couldn't protect your own wife. You really think you can protect them?" The words landed like punches, sharp, brutal. But Liam didn't flinch, because he knew what Victor didn't. You don't kill a man's fear by poking at old wounds. You kill it by reminding him what he has to lose. And Liam had everything to lose now. Without breaking eye contact, he stepped closer. "I'm not that mad anymore," he said. "Try me. Go to the courts. Bring your threats. But you won't get near them again." Victor's grin faltered, a crack in the mask. "You can't stop me." "Yes," Liam said, his voice quiet but unshakable. "I can." He pulled a folded paper from his pocket. The emergency protective order his lawyer had pushed through in record time that morning after the threat arrived. He held it out. "You're done, Victor. Any attempt to contact Emma or Luna, any attempt to come near this property, will put you in violation of this order. Next time you show up, you'll leave in handcuffs." Victor's eyes narrowed to slits. "You think a piece of paper scares me?" "No," Liam said, "but what it represents should. Because it's not just a piece of paper. It's proof. Proof that she's not alone anymore. That I'm not alone either." Victor spat on the ground, his composure fracturing. "She'll come crawling back. They always do." Liam leaned in, so close he could see the darkness behind Victor's eyes. "Not her. Not now. Not ever. Because she's not your prisoner anymore. She's family. My family. Try again, and you'll learn what that means." A flicker of something crossed Victor's face. Surprise, maybe even fear, but he masked it with a sneer. He stepped back, straightened his coat, and turned toward his car. "This isn't over, Carter." Liam didn't respond. He didn't need to, because it was over. The moment Victor's tires crunched down the drive, Liam felt a weight lift that had anchored his chest for too many years. When he stepped back inside, Emma was waiting at the top of the stairs, Luna in her arms. Her eyes were wide, her shoulders tense. "Is he gone?" she whispered. "He's gone," Liam said. He climbed the stairs 2 at a time, gathering her and Luna into his arms. He could feel Emma shaking against him, the baby's tiny hand pressed to his neck. Emma buried her face in his chest. "I don't know how to thank you," she said, her voice muffled. "Stay," Liam murmured into her hair. "Stay and let me keep you both safe. That's all I want." Emma pulled back, just enough to look at him. Her eyes were glassy with tears. She didn't try to hide anymore. "Do you mean that?" "I've never met anything more," he said. She smiled then, not the guarded smile she'd worn when they met, but something real, something that made every cold corner of his heart warm again. And for the first time since that day in the hospital, Liam let himself believe in tomorrow. That night, as the city hummed outside their windows, Liam sat in the nursery, the one that had been locked for so long, rocking Luna as she drifted to sleep. The walls still held the echoes of what he'd lost, but tonight they held something new too. The sound of a baby's soft breath, the warmth of Emma's footsteps coming down the hall, the promise of a family that had found each other when they least expected it. Liam Carter never imagined he'd find salvation in the middle of a garden overgrown with regret. He never imagined that the quiet echo of a baby's breath could drown out the silence he'd been living with for so long. But some families don't arrive the way you expect. Sometimes they appear in the middle of a storm, barefoot, trembling, asking for shelter when you've long forgotten how to open your doors. In the weeks that followed, the brownstone changed. The rooms that once felt like tombs now pulsed with life. The gentle shuffle of Emma's slippers across the kitchen floor at dawn. Luna's laughter echoing down the hallways that used to collect only dust. The sight of Liam, once a ghost among marble floors, now carrying a baby in one arm and her mother's hope in the other. Neighbors whispered when they saw him pushing a stroller through the garden paths out front. Some said he'd gone soft. Some said he'd lost his edge. But if they'd looked closer, they'd see it. The fire in his eyes wasn't gone. It had just found something worth burning for. One night, as Emma tucked Luna into the crib that once sat empty for so many years, Liam slipped his arm around her waist and whispered, "Thank you for knocking on my door." Emma turned, pressing her forehead to his. "Thank you for opening it." Because in the end, this isn't really a story about a billionaire who rescued a woman and her child. It's a story about what happens when broken people learn that staying is braver than leaving, and that sometimes family isn't written in blood but in promises kept and hands held in the dark. So, if you've ever wondered if you're too far gone to find your way back, remember Liam, Emma, and Luna. Remember that one stormy night can lead you home again. If this story touched your heart, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. And if you believe in second chances, in love that refuses to quit, and in the quiet courage it takes to stay, make sure you subscribe. Because your next story, the one that might heal something inside you too, is already waiting.